The Democratic Party faces a voter registration crisis. This is, it's going to be very delicious eating for the next few minutes. Get ready. Put on, put on a bib. You're just going to be jamming good things, lovely data into your mouth here for a couple of minutes. Of the 30 states that track voter registration by political party, Democrats lost ground to Republicans in every single one between the 2020 and 2024 elections, and often by a lot. That four-year swing toward the Republicans adds up to 4.5 million voters, a deep political hole that could take years for Democrats to climb out from. And you might say, wow, that's every single one. Is that possible? Yeah, and it looks even more fun in a graph. Look at this map. It's technically, I guess, a map with a bunch of graphs on it, but there's a bunch of down arrows there for those listening on podcasts. Every single state that measures these things this way is a down blue arrow. Every single one. Some are small, some are long, but every single one is blue and every single one is down. Up to 7% in drop-off. Now, of course, you might think, well, where do they go? Of course, the Republican side looks a lot better. In fact, almost every single state is up. There's a couple downs in Colorado, Nevada. Pretty much everything else is up or very close to even, if you see by the size of these arrows. Somewhere between plus 8% for Republicans in places like Idaho. The worst state was probably Colorado, down 3%. But I'd say about 80% of these states are up, and then a couple of them are even as well. So really good information for the Republicans. This is really good news. This should make you feel, I think, good. Not necessarily because you love all Republicans, but probably because you think Democrats do a terrible job when they run things, which, they do. Few measurements reflect the luster of a political party's brand more clearly than the choice by voters to identify with it. This is different than votes, You can go to a voter and say, who are you going to vote for? They think of 2016 as a good example of this election. Who are you going to vote for, Hillary or Trump? You might be erasing this from your mind, but a lot of people had real troubles figuring out, not necessarily between Hillary and Trump, but they were, I don't know. They were plugging their nose a little bit as they were voting for Donald Trump and for Hillary Clinton. I mean, a lot of Democrats didn't really love Hillary. These were the two most hated candidates in history when they were going up against each other. And like a race like that, you're going to get a lot of people who don't like either that wind up having to choose, right? That's different than identifying with a party. If you're identifying with a party, you're saying, I stand with them. I want my name to be on that list, okay? It's a big statement to make. Now, whether they register on a clipboard or in a supermarket parking lot, the DMV, or in the comfort of their own home, fewer and fewer Americans are choosing to be Democrats. In fact, for the first time since 2018, more new voters nationwide chose to be Republicans than Democrats last year. For years, the left has relied on a sprawling network of nonprofits, which solicit donations from people whose identities they need not to disclose to register Black, Latino, and younger voters. Though the groups are technically nonpartisan, the underlying assumption has been the most new voters registering would vote Democratic. Mr. Trump upended that calculation with the inroads he made with working-class non-white voters. This is a huge thing, and it's something, of course, Republicans tried to do for years and years and years and years. There was a little bit of a blip of progress when George W. Bush was in office, sort of faded away after that and did not come back until Donald Trump, who brought it back just a little bit in 2016, a little bit more in 2020, and a little bit more than that in 2024. Now, look, it's hard to brag about winning 20% of a group, right? Like, it's still, you're losing 80-20. However, those are massive improvements in some of these groups that what it was before. And it was enough to make the election a little more cushion there, right? Was it the difference in the election? I don't know that it was the difference in the election, but it could have been. It's not crazy to make that argument. And the fact that like a state like Florida is super more solid red than ever before. There's an element of it there. You see it in places in Texas with a lot of districts that used to be, easy for Democrats to win. Now Republicans are winning easily. Behind the scenes, a fierce fight is underway over how Democrats should address their sagging voter registration numbers and which groups should receive funding to do the work. It's a battle with hundreds of millions of dollars at stake, pitting partisans against philanthropists and some of the Democratic Party's most important constituencies against one another. Voter registration is an important barometer of a state's political tilt, even if it doesn't necessarily predict the outcome of the next election. I mean, you can look at that data and get too confident in it. A lot of people, some people I know are kind of in this world where they're predicting elections. A lot of times will look at that data and maybe go a little too far in their certainty as to one outcome or another. But a great place that I used this data recently was in the 2024 election, after there was a big poll that came out in Iowa that right before the election that Kamala Harris was going to win. You remember this is the Seltzer poll. She's like the most respected pollster. Every data nerd tells me they love her. She's now retired because this was a really bad miss. But every piece of evidence we had was that Donald Trump was going to win Iowa. And, the polls, every other poll showed a pretty solid win for Trump. The last election was a pretty solid win for the Republicans. And in the interim, between those two elections, there was massive voter gains in Iowa for Republican registrations. And it just didn't make any sense to me that this poll could possibly be right. Now, look, polls are wrong all the time. It's not that big of a deal. That one had so much weight. It moved the markets on Polymarket and Kalshi, and it was a nice little chance to kind of, cash in on an overreaction from the media, because the media, of course, wanted to believe the polls so badly. Anyway, it can help you, right? It can help you understand an election, but it doesn't necessarily tell you the outcome of it. It is an important indicator, though. Experts sometimes call it a lagging indicator because people typically stop voting with a party years before they formally register with a new one. This is true. It's almost like formalizing gains that have happened in previous years. Kentucky and West Virginia, for example, each flipped to Republican registration advantage only in recent years, though both states turned red in presidential contests long ago. A little bit more on this because this is all really fun, good stuff. In 2018, Democrats had accounted for 66% of new voters under 45 who registered with one of the two major parties, 66%. By 2024, that share had plunged to 48%. In other words, Republicans went from roughly 1/3 of newly registered voters under 45 to a majority in only 6 years. That's a massive difference. And I don't know exactly, we're going to go into this in a little bit more in a second. It's hard to know exactly what the difference is there. I've got a couple theories we'll go into. Any hope that the drift away, or blue fade, from the Democratic Party would end organically with Mr. Trump's election has been dashed with the limited data so far in 2025. Okay, so we all know that Trump won in 2024, so you might be like, okay, those are great changes, but we've already seen the fruits of that, right? Well, 2025, 160,000 fewer registered Democrats on Election Day in 2024 and 200,000 more Republicans. So there are now 160,000 fewer Democrats, 200,000 more Republicans since Trump won. You want to see it visually? Here it is. You see the blue line well above that red line in 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022. And then in 2023, you see a split coming. It goes, kind of crosses over mid-2023, and in 2024 and 2025, we see the opposite, where the red line, the Republicans, now lead. It's really good news. And you're seeing it happen as well with younger voters. Republicans are dominating among white Zoomers. Yes. The change in the shows the estimated percentage of white men and women who are registered with either party. And what you're seeing here, for you lovely podcast listeners who don't have visual access to this particular chart, the Republican line is well above for women. You're seeing it come down for Democrats. And for men, it is even lower. I mean, it's crashing really for Democrats there, from 49 to 29% over the past, almost century. It's a long-term chart. 53 to 47 for women, but really a steep drop since Gen Z sort of kicked in. And you see this when you see Democratic support by age. Another Chart of Palooza episode here on Stu Does America. Again, to explain to the podcast listeners, we have so many of them. We thank you for them, for tuning in. What you're seeing is Democrats in the 30s and 40s, the support's pretty high. And in the 70s and 80s, it's pretty high. But the groups in between, meaning very young voters and middle-aged voters in their maybe 40s, 50s, 60s, a lot lower. It's not, you think of it as a straight line. Oh, as you get older, you get more conservative. Not really what's happening right now. A lot of this, and we've done, 10, 15 shows on what is a potential realignment since the show started in 2020. just a few weeks before COVID hit, by the way. We're seeing that alignment, and it does appear to be real at some level. And you're seeing this being locked in now with party registration. Young voters on college campuses are shifting toward Trump. Again, another map with lots of red lines, almost all of them voting up, moving up and to the right. There's a little bit in a couple places, again, Colorado was the one we mentioned, where you see a little blue arrow, but generally speaking, between 18 to 24 voters at 88 major college campuses from 20 to 24, massive movement towards Republicans. It's a lot of good news. A lot of good news. You should be really confident after that, right? Well, let me give you a little bit more. Democrats alarmed over new data showing voters fleeing GOP, of course. Democratic strategist Eddie Vail noted a span of voters, including people of different races and ages, were abandoning the party, according to the Times reporting. He said that his worry is that all these different kinds of voters feel like the Democratic Party left them. They all shared the broader fact they are working class and not feeling like we were talking to them or actually going to help them. So that needs to be fixed, he said. Another Democratic strategist found the report disheartening at a time when Democrats are feeling rudderless and leaderless and lacking a coherent message for voters. They've never had a coherent message, to be clear. It's never been something they've worked on. Two things need to happen for Trump's political movement to fail. Trump and MAGA popularity plummets and Democrats' brand popularity rises, the strategist said. The former is happening, but not the latter. So they think their attacks are working, but they are not propping themselves up. It's an interesting perspective, though. Again, they've tried this over and over again. I mean, the Trump is Hitler thing has been their main message since 2015. And I don't think they've seen much, if any gains out of it. Recent polls show that Democrats view their party as weak. An Associated Press NORC Center for Public Affairs research poll in July found that about 1 in 5 Democrats describe their party in a positive light. 1 out of 5. And a poll by the Democratic super PAC Unite the Country, obtained by The Hill last month, showed that voters perceived the Democratic Party as out of touch, woke, and weak. And when they say they've obtained a poll, almost always it means the organization that took the poll sent it to them. That's how the media works. When you see obtained the poll, generally speaking, that's how that happened. A Wall Street Journal poll out late last month showed Democrats' popularity had hit the lowest point in 35 years, as 63% of voters had an unfavorable view of the party. At the same time, only 33% favorable view. Great news, right? This is incredible news. Like, everything I just told you shows you the Democrats are in the worst spot that anyone can ever remember them being in. They have absolutely no future. They are rudderless. They are aimless. They are trying to attach themselves to socialists and communists to try to win elections. This is a total disaster.